Eric, can you hear me okay?
Yeah, sure can.
Awesome. Let's go. Belinda, myself, we're waiting on others. Who's Chris Brewster?
He's with Gold Evans for the Title 16 rewrite.
Okay, cool. Very cool. Eric, just to confirm, we're going to need 4 commission members to meet quorum.
Yep, that's correct.
I just texted CJ to see if she's on her way.
I just did the same.
Ah,
I know that Lauren had mentioned, I thought she was going to be present tonight. So, yeah, there she is. All right. Well, I believe we have a quorum now.
Yes, you do. You can go ahead and start whenever you're ready.
Okay, awesome. All right, time is 6:34 p.m. Calling the meeting to order. Eric, can you do roll call, please?
Sure. Chair Crabtree.
Present.
Vice Chair Parker.
Here.
Hannah is absent currently. Melinda.
here.
CJ is not here as of yet. And Lauren.
Here.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, very good, thank you. Next, approval of minutes from the previous meeting, draft minutes from November 16th, 2022. Can I get a motion to approve?
So moved.
Thank you, Melinda. Is there a second?
I'll second.
All right, awesome. Is there any discussion, amendments, changes? Anything to be adjusted? Okay, not hearing any. All in favor of approving the minutes as written?
Aye.
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 Okay, those opposed? Okay. Next up is public forum. I don't think we have anybody here from the public tonight. Moving on to old business working session with multi-studio for the Title 16 code next rewrite. For the record, I guess this is it was previously called, what was the previous name of the organization?
This Chris Brewster with Multi Studio. We were previously called Gould Evans, and we just recently went through a rebranding and changed our name.
Oh, very good. Okay, cool. Yeah, just want to make sure that was clear for everyone here. Well, I guess, all right, Chris, thank you for coming tonight and being present for our meeting. We have, to give you a little background on this, we've worked quite extensively with a number of previous commission members. I know one of them was no longer on the commission, but he was a great resource for information. We proposed some Title 16 changes as it relates to historic preservation. Those have been reviewed by city attorneys, multiple city attorneys. As the city of Inglewood has gone through a few changes with city attorneys, but it's kind of nice actually, because you get multiple different viewpoints. I guess everybody has a slightly different opinion and you get to a better place. Anyway, so I guess I'll leave it there. And it was reviewed by the city attorney currently and was put into the recommendations, and it was discussed by council to have it wait until the full Title 16 rewrite potentially. I don't know if that will change or not, but we'd like to kind of get an update as to where we are with Title 16, where the city is with Title 16, and specifically with the work that we've done thus far.
Yeah, thanks. And Brian, chime in if I miss anything, but we have just finished a series of meetings with both the city council and our steering committee, which is largely made up of planning commissioners, going through the initial drafts of all of the sections of the code absent the historic preservation portion. We've had a placeholder for incorporating that to coordinate with your all's work, which we knew from the very beginning was going on. So we've been monitoring it, but just haven't integrated it yet. So we're at a pretty good spot where we think the code structure is coming together, and we hope by the beginning of next year to have all the input from some of the council sessions and be able to give our recommended draft. Right now, we just have an initial draft and framework, and the council's wrestling with some fairly meaty issues on housing and affordability. And there's a couple more work sessions scheduled in January that should finalize some of the direction on that. And from there, we'll pull together a formatted final recommended draft and begin to strategize the adoption process, which will then trigger, as you all probably are aware, the full public hearing and public review process. So we've tried to have a pretty engaged communication throughout so that there's no surprises when we get to the adoption process. And we found that, the hearings usually go a lot smoother when that's happened. And so the last probably 4 or 5 months, those groups have been vetting the different approaches in the code fairly thoroughly for your all's purposes, and probably things that do impact your interests. The biggest things we are working on are in the neighborhoods and housing, trying to promote more neighborhood scale housing and infill projects that meet the city's comprehensive plan with regard to walkable neighborhoods, density that supports transit, but also maintaining human scale development patterns as opposed to really larger monumental or automobile scale patterns. So those are the things we've been working on. A lot of things that are already in your current code that we're coordinating and trying to strengthen a little bit. So nothing that's really huge, massive changes. Just kind of trying to tweak the code a little bit so that the residential districts have a lot more meaningful distinctions between them, I guess would be a good way to say it.
You're on mute, Matt. Sorry.
Yep, thank you for that. We have set aside a actually the whole meeting as a working session to kind of review and see where we are with the process thus far. So as it relates to, I know you had mentioned a lot in the housing and infill projects and things along those lines. Those do affect historic preservation, but I think the first part that we should really discuss is our portion of the Title 16, which I don't recall. I don't know if Cash, if you remember what portion that was going to be under, or did we have a section already? I don't know if we had a section already.
I don't have it in front of me, so I don't remember for sure.
Yeah,
I have it up. I mean, it was 16,611,
Okay,
and they were maybe moving it, but and we completed our changes to it 2 years ago.
that is correct. 2 years ago. So it's been a long process here, and a lot has changed in the city over the course of those 2 years, and there are a lot of things in the section that we're working on, that we have worked on, that the community has requested and asked for. So I guess we'll go ahead and start off some of the questions here. I'll start off with the first, bulk of it is what does our code look like now as it's been reviewed by your organization?
Well, first, that's a pretty broad question. I think one of the things we try to do is to really simplify the code. And that starts with better organization of it and putting things in the right place. So one of the things we have done early on, we were reserving a chapter 12, I believe, I don't have it in front of me, was going to be the entire historic preservation section. The other thing we do that in reviewing where you all are at, that some in different code projects, one of the big things we do in terms of organization and simplifying the code is trying to move all procedures to one section, which we have done in chapter 2 of the code. And the reason we do that is we aren't as redundant with things that are repetitive with regard to hearings, notice, application forms, things like that. So that's the only thing that what you're working on would be a little bit different, because from what I've reviewed and with all the work you all put into it, your draft does have a lot of procedures in it. So early on, we were thinking, well, we could put those in, merge them with our procedures, and then leave the substantive part of the historic preservation in its right place. However, with the work that's gone on, I'm in our decision early on to reserve an entire chapter for it. I'm thinking that it plugs in very nicely on it as its own standalone ordinance. One of the reasons development codes in general often have a lot of specific topics, whether it's telecommunications in the Front Range oil and gas standards, things that are more standalone topics. And those are the things you often find in their own chapters. And so that's why we knew historic preservation was coming up. And so we flagged it early on to say, let's just put it in its own chapter. So I don't have the overall framework in front of me, but you can find it online where it organizes all the chapters and how they're structured. But essentially we put all the general provisions in chapter 1, handles all the mechanics of the code. Procedures in chapter 2 handles applications that involve the development standards. And then from there, we roll through the more substantive standards of street design and civic spaces in 3, uses and districts in 4, residential development in 5, non-residential development in 6, and then the landscape, parking, signs, and then historic preservation.
Have there been any changes to the wording or the intent?
No, we have been assuming that we're going to take where you all end up and just plug it in. We didn't, knowing that you had been working on it, we just kept it. We said when you finish your work, we'll go in and review it for anything that helps coordinate with code, but we were leaving it to the input of your process to determine the standards.
Okay, all right. I guess then, so at that point, if it passes this stage and it gets to kind of a structured, I guess, then it has to go to code of, I guess the term would be codification or actual adoption of the code as a whole or individually. How does that process work?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think how you said it early on is probably correct, that if your issues are advancing quicker than ours or vice versa, they could go independently. If we're able to coordinate things, we prefer to try to adopt the code as a whole. But we even have things that we're working on that we know might take longer, and we haven't gotten to our formal adoption strategy yet. And we'll do that once we know where some of these larger issues end up in January. So if there are things that take a longer discussion, we will come up with a strategy that allows the city to adopt the code in segments. In general, though, going in, we hope that our process has resolved most of the issues and we can adopt it all at once. That doesn't mean yours would have to coordinate with that. It obviously would be an advantage if it does for the city because they can run one process. However, one of the things we could do in the interim is, since you currently have sections in the code addressing this, if your issue were lagging behind what the adoption process was going to be, we could at least plug that in, so we're adopting your current standards as is, and then we could circle back and incorporate wherever you all end up. But ideally, we get it all coordinated in the early part of next year to go through as one process.
Okay. Just real fast here, sorry to kind of pause here. CJ just has got a point of order here. CJ just let me know that she's having trouble getting in. Eric, do you see anybody trying to join in the room right now?
Let me check here.
And CJ is currently listening in on my cell phone on speaker. I'm not sure how well she can hear me, but
I'm pretty good. I'm updating the Zoom thing right now, preparing meetings. It looks like I might be able to. Thank you, Melinda. It looks like that's the issue. I'm in. I'm coming in.
she's coming in.
Sorry. I swear to God, these things are supposed to help us.
Hey, on a night like this, we're glad to be able to meet remotely.
Yeah, exactly. It's quite.
So I just promoted her to panelist, so she should be able to join anytime here.
Oh, okay. She just hung up our call, so she must be on her way.
Apologies for the delay. Yeah.
Well, it says here we have 8 participants.
Yeah, she's on as an attendee, and I'm selecting promote to panelist. And then so something should activate on her end where it should prompt her to join as panelist. So, but that doesn't appear to be happening. So I don't know what is. Oh, wait. There she is.
All right.
CJ here.
Hi, CJ.
Sorry, I was watching you guys. I just was, like he said, an attendee. Okay.
Yeah.
Can you guys see me? No,
Not really.
not really. Okay.
Black. It was just a black screen right now.
Huh, might be better. I can't tell you. It says it's recording and it has a video and I am so sorry.
No,
But I
that's-
can hear you guys. Just move on.
That's all right.
I'm here.
So, Chris, I think CJ, well, actually, CJ, you were able to hear most of what Chris had been commenting on.
I'd say the latter half.
Latter half. Okay. Well, we had basically asked, how things were,
Moving forward. right.
moving forward, and he kind of explained a little bit about the chapter structure and whatnot. So, anyway, I don't want to monopolize too much of the floor right now. I want to give the opportunity, I guess, for other people to comment in and chime in for any questions about the process here. You have a whole meeting set aside for this. If Cash, do you want to have any? Do you have any comments, questions, anything as of yet?
Yeah, I think, Chris, you probably answered this as best you could a minute ago, but my question was about the timeline for actually having this presented to council and council adopting it. And it sounds like after these, excuse me, sessions in January, these working sessions, you'll probably have a little bit better idea of exactly what that looks like. And so ideally, sometime in the early part, first quarter or so of the year, that's the idea, to get this in front of council.
Yes, that's our hope, and we're prepared to kind of speed up or slow down as is necessary. I think our decision point will be mainly on the housing issue, which is the one they've already met and discussed it a couple of times, and so there's another session coming up. There's what I should mention, but there's a separate, I don't know if you're aware, there was a separate affordable housing study under a grant that the city was pursuing with Root Policy Analytics, and they're a consulting firm, and they've been feeding into our process as well. And so if any of those issues uncover things that need further discussion and have a longer timeline, we'll get with planning staff and figure out if there's certain parts of the code we need to adopt incrementally. So we've been trying to get some of the larger policy discussions in front of council, so they're aware, because a lot of the code changes we're doing are either coordination, cleanup, things that were maybe occurring but weren't as clearly specified in the code, maybe adding a few new things just by modernizing it. So those are the types of things we don't want to hold up too long if we don't have to. But for some of these larger issues, we're willing to slow down if we need to.
And do you all, I mean, forgive maybe the ignorance of this question, but do you all actually, once the code gets presented to council, I mean, are you providing legal advice in terms of saying, we recommend adopting this portion of the code for these following reasons?
Yeah, we don't provide the legal advice. We're a planning and urban design firm. I do have a law degree as a background. So the way I like to look at it is we do a lot of the legwork for the city attorney's office because they often don't have the time to dive into entire code rewrites. But ultimately, the legal sign off has to come from the city attorney's office.
That's what I thought, and I wanted to make sure that was the case. I guess the other thing I'm wondering too is, from a legal standpoint and from the city attorneys, and I don't presume for you to speak on behalf of the city attorney's office, but we've been done with this process, at least from our perspective, for, like Melinda said, for a while now. We put quite a few hours into putting that all together. I guess, is there anything else that this commission needs to do to ensure that it's copacetic with and passes through the city attorney's office, through that process, and all of that? I mean, assuming at some point, let's just say it has to be adopted as a standalone ordinance versus an omnibus, if other things get delayed, what else do we have to do going forward to put that on track to happen potentially, besides getting city council to pass it, but leading up to that?
Let me hop in, Chris, real quick. Just to give you guys a heads up, you will have a working session with the city attorney. Matt, I was going to have you put that on the schedule for January's meeting. So that's just going to be going over the code language to see if there's any changes and See if there's anything that comes out of tonight that you would like to see or think about adding or changing.
Thanks.
Is this another lawyer, Eric, a different one?
No, this is Vicky.
Oh, wow. Thank you.
That makes sense, Eric. That probably answers it. Chris, I don't know if you have anything else to add beyond what Eric said.
No, I think from our perspective, we wanted to your all's work, expertise, and interests, and get that in the code. So we usually, when we do special topics like this, our role is usually just to review to make sure we're coordinating with the overall code. So we plan on doing that with a lot of sections that are plugging in, and we'll do the same with this.
Sure.
Cool. Thank you, Cash. Melinda, do you have
Thank
any,
you.
you have any comments, questions?
I don't think so, not this time.
Okay, CJ? Okay. Some of the questions that I have actually still remaining here is, how are conflicts in, I don't know if it's possible for our code to conflict with any other areas within the code. I know you had mentioned a lot about affordable housing. If anything, I would say that our section of the code, being the preservation of properties that are historic in the city, which are oftentimes a little bit smaller than some of the structures and the scaled structures that are being put in now, may actually complement the affordable housing aspect of the code. So that's probably another aspect. But to look at complements and contradictions, or complements and things that affect other areas of the code, how is that going to be addressed?
Yeah, I think our first role is to, when I mentioned our role of coordinating, that would be where we would try to eliminate any conflicts in terms of substance or procedures or things like that that would cause questions for people administering the code. We want to have as much certainty as we can on how things are reviewed, what criteria, what are the next steps. So I think I would expect us to catch and eliminate those types of conflicts. Some of the other things you're mentioning, I think, are more at the policy level. So when we get into some of the discretionary decisions of either a rezoning or a development permit versus some of the priorities that you're putting in for preserving, I think that's where the conflicts might arise. And what we typically look for is the code appropriately framing all of the potential trade-offs and benefits in the public interest. So I think it would be impossible to not have some potential conflicts where people might differ on whether to do something or not. But at least we want the decision making to be pretty clear in that regard. And so I think everything you've been working on seems to be aligning with that.
And it does align, so the code does align. Okay.
Yeah.
Lauren, I'm sorry, I skipped over you here. I want to give you the opportunity to ask a question or offer any input too.
No worries, Matt. I actually had the same question you did about just kind of how preservation might intersect with other areas of the code. So I appreciate the answer, Chris. Thank you.
So that portion where so you kind of mentioned that it's I guess from a more of a functional standpoint of code not saying one thing in chapter 3 versus the code saying something that directly in opposition in say chapter 4. That's kind of what you were discussing or kind of reviewing there. Is that process? Is there's a level of auditing that'll occur, I'd assume, as once it's all put together?
Yeah, I think so. And again, most of them come from the procedures themselves, like how does an appeal work? How does a public hearing work? So and yours can work completely differently. And in fact, they will, because things start to come to your commission rather than the planning commission when there's this issue. So we want those to mesh. I think the other things that are more of the substance and criteria, we're pretty much deferring to where you all end up. So that's where I get to. There may be some criteria regarding preservation that could potentially conflict with other criteria on a different decision on transit-oriented development or something like that that's in the code. And I think at that point, we're making sure that the decision-making bodies, which would include you all, are able to clearly articulate the trade-offs that are involved in any one decision.
Has any discussions or review been done yet with our code related to other areas such as, so I know planning and zoning, there's a bit of crossover in some degree with planning and zoning. Small, but there is a bit of crossover there. Has any of those procedures been kind of reviewed with our proposed code?
Not that I know of from our end. I know staff's been working closely with you all, so I'll defer to them on if other groups have been incorporated or not.
Eric, do you know if or Brian, do you know if there's been any kind of sanity check or process here between us and other commissions or us and other processes?
Not by me yet, but if we're having a working session with the city attorney's office in January, I'll get through it before then.
Okay. Cool. All right. Well, is there anybody else that would like to ask any other questions here? This is it's actually pretty straightforward. I wasn't entirely sure what to expect on this, so I wanted to dedicate enough time to it. But
Yeah, I was prepared to do battle if necessary.
well, there you go.
Well, I just like the idea that someone else is looking at the, what do you call it? Do the T's, dot the I's, all that stuff.
Yeah.
You're earning your money, sir.
All right. Eric, are there any other points that you could consider at this point that might be good to bring up that I might be missing?
No, not off the top of my head. I think you've covered everything I was thinking about. So
Okay, good. Let's see. I guess so. Timing wise, I guess before we let you go, maybe describe a little more in January what that process looks like in January, because it should be. Correct me if I'm wrong here, but it should be kind of nearing end of your part of this process. Then
I can talk about some of the timing, Chris. So we had 4 working sessions in November. Basically every Monday in November, we had a topic that we took to council. We were given direction to come back to them in January. I think right now we're anticipating the January 23rd meeting to go back to a study session to council with majority of it around housing. From there, we want to start looking at how we've been planning on doing one more public outreach, and then kind of a board and commission, what I call the board and commission symposium. That way we can kind of inform and listen to all of our boards and commissions, including you all. So there'll be another time to look at it. And then from there, start mapping out the adoption process. We've been eyeballing, the end of the first quarter. I don't know if that's going to happen. It depends on where council sits in January. That's really where we're at right now, is waiting to find out where the chips fall on the housing discussions, and then finishing up the drafts, Chris's team finishing up the drafts, and then moving forward with a kind of our final draft copy.
so.
But what we can do, and what we've done for the Planning and Zoning Commission and UDC Steering Committee, is sent them links to those council study sessions, along with the draft sections of the code that were included. And like Chris mentioned, framework, we include the draft framework for the whole UDC. Sorry, I just realized my camera's not on. We have at the beginning of each one of those sets of documents, there's a draft framework for the whole UDC. Then there's kind of what Chris's team put together is a section by section map that really talks about the high level changes that are occurring in each section or each chapter. And then the third attachment is the actual draft code. So we can send links to all of that so you all can go through it. Like you said, right now it hasn't included the historic preservation piece. That hasn't been included yet in any of those drafts. But we'll keep working to update, especially after we have a working session with the attorneys next month.
Okay. Well, great. Well, thank you for that, Brian. Well, all right. I guess that kind of wraps up most of the questions that I had. That was pretty easy. That was only about a half hour. Anybody else have anything that we'd like to ask Chris before he goes? Okay. Well, Chris, I very much appreciate you taking the time on this cold evening to stop by the Zoom session and tell us all about the work that you've been doing.
Yeah, thank you all. And again, if you have questions on the stuff that Brian's going to pass along, reach out to us. We want to be transparent, especially with boards and commissions, as Brian mentioned. So thank you all.
Okay, very good. All right, thank you, Chris. All right. Cool. Well, I guess we move on here to our next agenda item, which will be new business. We don't have any new business tonight. How about staff's choice?
I don't think I have anything tonight.
Okay. Quick thing here with that before well, let's see, before we move on that. So next meeting, I'll kind of set it up the same way just to give us enough time, but I'm going to call it working session with Title 16 working session with the city attorney. Is that right?
Yep, that sounds good.
Cool, perfect.
So it's not a special day. It's the same day.
Same.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, cool. All right, commissioner's choice.
Question?
ahead.
The saving places, I keep getting stuff from them. Are we going to that? Is anyone going to that? I'd like to go to that.
Eric, do we have any money set aside that?
Yeah, we do. And for some reason, I thought, do they have something in the spring as well as the fall? Because I know there was something that had just come across my desk.
One saving places, I don't know what the other one is. Saving places seems to be the one I go to.
Okay. Yeah, just send me an email so I'll remember to look into that tomorrow.
Okay, whatever I
and
get, I'll
then-
forward to you. And then that way.
Okay. So yeah, if you're interested, we can sign you up on our end
Okay.
and take care of that.
Lauren, are you going?
I am not. I will be on maternity leave.
Oh, yeah, the baby. Baby.
So if anybody else wants to go, just let me know via email, and we'll get you we'll get you signed up.
Very cool. CJ, do you have anything else? Okay, cool. Lauren, you had an update that you wanted to provide to the commission.
Yeah. So at our last meeting, we had talked about the Denver Tramway car 319 that I've been contacted about. And there are some gentlemen that are hoping to restore the car. Historically, it traveled through Inglewood. And apparently it was the first car after the Denver tramway strike of 1920, I believe. It was the first car to leave the station. So it's, historically significant in that way, as well as just in and of itself as a trolley car. So I spoke with John Cox and Mike Parnell yesterday, actually. They shared a bunch of photos and also kind of showed me a car that's already been restored that's awaiting to be placed in Arvada. And so they just wanted to, talk to us a little bit more about kind of how we can be involved, what we can do, what the city's involvement might be. So I invited them to the January meeting. I hope that's not an issue, so they can kind of present to everyone, photos of the car, give a little bit more detail about it and about kind of the restoration process, what that might look like from our end, and then see what kind of support we can give them. They did say that this car is actually in fairly good condition compared to some others that they've restored, and that, it might not take as much time or effort or money, but that's all.
That's
to be
wild, because it looked like it had been beaten up pretty bad.
Yeah, well, they were saying that it's actually been kind of on a platform, and it's been the owners who, it's on their land right now. They used it for a fair number of years, so it got some maintenance in that respect during that time. But yeah, I was surprised to hear that too, but apparently it is in good shape comparatively. So yeah, and I wanted to ask Eric, if I know we had talked last time about maybe seeing what the city can do, what involvement they might want. Did you get a chance to talk to anyone about that? Okay,
Was that-
well, maybe in January, we can see what the city might be able to do.
Okay,
I
cool.
missed the answer. I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry, I didn't realize I was on mute. Yeah. Could you send me an email, Lauren, and then I can make sure and look into that, follow up on that for you.
Yep, I will do that.
Thank you.
Mhm.
All right, very cool. Thank you, Lauren. I'm gonna try to squeeze that on the agenda. We'll probably put that after the Title 16 stuff, and maybe we can. We'll I don't know. What do you think about that, Eric? Do you think we should have time? I don't know, I was expecting tonight to go a lot longer with the discussions with the
I
consulting.
would say if somebody's coming for like guest wise, we should put that first on the agenda.
Okay,
So then we don't have to keep them through our legalese.
that's true. So we'll put that under new business, I guess, at the top of the agenda. That's a good idea.
Hey,
Excellent.
Lauren, quick question. You see these fund me things? Do historic groups do that? Does that work?
I have no idea, honestly. I know just from talking to these guys and other projects I know of, the State Historical Fund is where, a lot of monies come from for
Okay.
restoration projects, along with a couple of, quite a few other nonprofits, or I'm sorry, like foundations throughout Colorado. They did say they also got money from the city of Arvada for part of the restoration of that car. So, I think I've never heard of the GoFundMe.
I was just curious. And then
Yeah.
number two, was there any talk about where they thought or where it might go?
No, and that's, I think, one of the things that they're hoping we can help them with is to kind of solidify a location. Just somewhere where it needs to be protected, covered, but not necessarily inside. It could be just more of like a shelter. But that's one of the things they're hoping we can help with.
Well, it's interesting too, because there's a lot of flux and kind of discussions with the city center redevelopment right now. And there's some neat ideas that I think have been thrown around thus far with kind of naming streets after, the Cinderella City malls, having Rose Mall and or Rose or, whatever, Shamrock, and these different streets that are named and kind of complement the city center history, along with some of the other history in Inglewood, and those kind of complements there. And they're looking for things to draw attention to the area. It would be interesting to bring that up to the DDA, and I do have contact with the DDA in the capacity as the Historic Society. So I could bring that up and see if there's any interest for them to get involved. That'd be a neat attraction to the new city center development, to have that somewhere in a common area there that people could see it, and maybe alongside the trolley car, because the city's going to have to be dealing with that soon too, because the building that the trolley car is in will potentially not be there in the future. So
It'd be cool if every once in a while it could get on its wheels and travel around the city and take people from one place to another, do tourism things.
the tram car that you're talking about, or which one?
The tram.
The tram. Well, there is a trolley that actually that I believe.
The RTD trolley?
Yeah, I don't think that's, yeah, maybe that's the one. I guess it is the RTD one that just looks like a trolley. Yeah, and it's just built on an RTD bus, right?
Yeah, well, looks like a trolley.
There is, I think there's a trolley that was, I don't know if the city still has that. I'm sure they do. It's over at, I think it's over at the service center, city service center.
Clueless.
I'm fairly certain that there is either somebody replicated the old, Sherilyn trolley car and put it on a truck chassis, and it's a small bus. Eric, do you know anything about this?
No, I don't.
I'm fairly certain that that exists.
Yeah, you were dreaming.
Could be. I don't know. Doug told,
I guess Doug would know, or someone on the Historic Society should know, huh?
I'm fairly certain that Doug was the one that told me about it. I've never seen it. But anyway, there is I think there's been a similar idea in the past to what you're saying. Anyway, yeah, so. Well, very cool. Anything else, Lauren?
No, that's all for me. Thanks.
And I'll throw out, Matt, that, with some of the money that the society has is offering to help out a little there too.
Sure. Yeah, not a bad idea. We can certainly bring that up. That'd be a neat project to complement, and being able to work with the city on this, or work with that other organization. I think we can tie all three groups together. There's certainly a lot of amazing history there. Okay. CJ, do you have anything else?
Not at this point.
Okay. Cash?
I don't have anything other than related to our discussion about the code. Eric, would it be possible next month with the agenda or separately to have the set of revisions as they presently stand recirculated? Because I was trying to lay hands on those before this meeting and I couldn't, and maybe I'm not looking in the right place in my email or what have you, but would it be possible to get that with next month's agenda?
Yep, absolutely. I was planning to send
Perfect.
that out a couple weeks ahead of time, so people
Okay.
will have a chance to review it.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah.
Cool.
And we have one vacancy on this commission right now? Is that right?
Yeah, Jason.
And I believe January is the next appointment cycle for commission members. Right? January when council does it. So yeah, hopefully they find somebody. Or if you know anybody that wants to join, twist their arm, try to get them on board. The more people, the better. Thank you, Cash.
Thanks.
Melinda, do you have anything?
Well, yes.
Okay.
I've been reading through the neighborhood history document that Lauren put together. I was doing a proofread of it. It's a marvelous piece of work. It taught me things I didn't know. So it's really great. And I had, I've been proofreading it, so I have a couple of spots of typos or in a couple of corrections in places. I'm not sure what to do with them. But before it gets attached, if it ever gets attached to the neighborhood map, then we should probably fix that, just so that all of the history teachers and English teachers and so forth out there don't come down on us.
Lauren, would that just go back to you?
First of all, thanks, Melinda, for doing that. I appreciate it. I guess it could come back to me. My hope, like you said, is that it goes on the GIS map. Just, each of the bits of information would be part of the pop-ups for each of the neighborhoods. So Eric, who would be kind of in charge of doing that? Would that be Madeline? Would that be someone at the GIS team?
I think that would be communications. And I figured that we would revisit that once we got through the Title 16 stuff early next year and just kind of bring them back in and see how we can add those updates to the interactive map.
Because I thought that was the plan, to add those to the interactive map.
Yep.
Right. Well, should I send my document with the tweaks to Lauren then?
Yeah, you can go ahead. I think you can, if it's just the two of you talking on it, just the two of you on there, you should be able to email back and forth together on that, right? Doesn't have to go through you, Eric.
No, that's correct. I would just say, Lauren, when you have made the changes, could you send that document to me?
Yep, I can do that.
Awesome.
Well, and Lauren, thank you so much for the putting everything together on that. And that was that's a lot of work, and it looked great.
Truly appreciated.
Yeah, it was great.
Not a problem. It was fun to do, and I learned a lot too. So
All right, cool. Well, I have a couple of things. Found out some fascinating history about the Denver area. It's actually in Denver. It's not in Inglewood, but it's pretty close. It's over off of Evans, 13th and Evans, I think, or not 13th and Evans, 1300 block of Evans. Can't remember. Let me look up the address here. Anyway, my point is, there is a historic building tucked away in an industrial area there that was Denver's first cotton mill. It was built in 1890. It's still standing. It's hidden away in the back. There's a company called Hercules Industries that is using it as a production for sheet metal.
Well, they do, I was
manufacturing.
about to say, they do sheet metal and rebar and stuff.
Yeah, yeah. So anyway, they are at what's their address?
I've been there and I never even noticed.
Well, you gotta you go in the back. It's just amazing. Actually, look at it on Google Maps. It's amazing. It's 1310 Evans Avenue. And
But you have to go down by Wesley, I think, to get there, right?
well, I think it's behind their building. It's very strange. It's what's the cross street here? I'm gonna look it up on a map real fast. It's
That's West Evans, right?
yeah, West Evans.
Right. Mhm.
It is,
Just past Platte River.
yeah, Lipan. Yeah, it's at Lipan and Evans basically, and it's way tucked back in there. And it is a absolutely amazing old building.
How'd you find it?
Well, I had to go pick up some sheet metal a couple weeks ago, and I'm there, and I was looking at it on Google Maps. I'm like, my God, what is this building back there? And the guy at the front counter just kind of casually said, "Here's a pamphlet about the history of the building we're in," and it was it's actually a cotton mill, or was a
Oh,
cotton
too
mill.
cool.
So would be an interesting thing. I don't know if it'd be kind of neat to learn a little more history about that, but I thought that was pretty neat.
It's kind of neat that people who work in those historic buildings actually are
Know it.
proud of the history of the building.
Yeah, and it's actually still standing and being used for largely a commercial purpose.
Is it too? So it's a reuse type thing.
It's a
Is
reuse.
Is it possible to take a picture of that pamphlet he gave you, or is it emailable, or?
Well, it's just like a trifold pamphlet. I can scan it and I can send it to Eric and have him send it off to the group, because it's kind of a neat history.
Oh, that is so cool.
Yeah. So there's that. And the other thing is the Inglewood Historic Preservation Society will be doing a lecture Tuesday, January 31st. There'll be two lectures, one at 2:30 and one at 6:30. The topic will be the history of the Mayflower Church, and it will be held at the Mayflower Church at 3001 South Acoma.
You remember a few years back, I was interviewing different places for history.
Yeah.
And when I talked to the secretary at Mayflower, she said, our pastor in the 70s felt that all this archival stuff was trash and he threw it away.
Oh, that was the mentality in the 70s.
Wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was during the big Denver urban renewal
Parking lot.
parking lot generation. Yeah, creation of parking lots. But yeah, so if you guys are interested, the Inglewood Historic Preservation, or I should say Historic Inglewood, we're still in the process of changing our name, but
Do you, where you are, Matt, can you hear them ringing the worship bell on Sunday mornings over at the Mayflower Church?
I can't. No, I can hear the trains somehow off of Santa Fe, but I can't hear the bell necessarily ring.
That it took me back to my childhood. At my grandmother's house, the church down the street would ring the worship bell, and you had 5 minutes to get down to the church. You know, and
Put your underwear on.
and yeah, and it, like I say, it really takes me back that to hear that on a Sunday morning, mostly in the summer.
Oh, wow. Yeah,
That's
I guess
cool.
I haven't ever heard that. That's
Well, you're hearing a baby go, eh, eh.
Yeah.
sure. So anyway, yeah, and if you're interested in attending the lecture, I can send around the RSVP for the Eventbrite for that.
Hey, Matt, do all the commissioners get the Historic Society newsletter?
That's a good question.
I think they should.
Linda gets it. I know you get it, right?
I get it because I'm a member, but
Yeah.
yeah, I don't
Cassie?
know.
I don't get it.
Oh,
I
my
do
gosh.
not.
Oh, all right. I will, if you guys are okay, I'll add you to the mailing list.
Please.
That'd be
Okay.
great.
Thanks.
Yeah.
It's really cute, some of the stories that he runs across, and wait till you hear one of mine. Oh my gosh, Matt, you and I have to talk tonight.
Oh,
All right.
okay.
Bye.
All right. Cool. All right, so I guess that's all I have. Anybody else have anything before we adjourn early this evening? And I'm also losing my voice, so it's good timing.
Oh,
Sorry, I've been sick the last couple of days. It's terrible.
we'll see each other next year.
Yes, that's true. That's true.
Cool.
So, all right, well, I guess not hearing any other discussion here. Merry Christmas. Happy New Year.
Thank you, Eric, for your work with us this year.
Hey, no problem.
Yeah, thanks, Eric.
No problem. Everybody have a nice holiday season, and we'll see you next year. I just need a motion and a second to adjourn.
So
Yeah.
moved.
All right, second.
Second.
All right, thank you all. Have a good night.
Bye,
All
everyone.
right.
Take care,
Merry
everybody.
Stay safe.
Have a good holiday. See ya.
Yeah, stay
Bye.
warm.
Stay warm.